Before the speed, before the engines, before the billion-dollar empires, there was tension. Because the story of the rivalry between Ferrari and Lamborghini didn't begin on a racetrack. It began with a disagreement, a moment, a conversation that would change automotive history forever. At the center of it all was a man who had already achieved success, a man who understood machines, power, precision, but wasn't part of the racing world. Not yet. Ferruccio Lamborghini. Ferruccio wasn't a racer. He wasn't chasing trophies. He wasn't obsessed with lap times. He was a businessman, a visionary who built his fortune manufacturing tractors in post-war Italy. Simple machines, reliable machines, machines that worked. And that mindset would define everything. With his success came wealth, and with wealth came taste. Ferruccio began buying luxury cars, the best of the best, machines that represented status, performance, excellence, and naturally, that led him to Ferrari. At the time, Enzo Ferrari had already built something powerful, not just a company, but a symbol. Ferrari wasn't just about cars, it was about racing, emotion, passion, machines built for performance above everything else. Ferruccio admired that at first, because owning a Ferrari meant something. It meant you had arrived. It meant you understood excellence. But admiration doesn't last forever when reality doesn't meet expectations. Because Ferruccio noticed something that most people ignored, something that others accepted as part of the experience. Problems, mechanical issues, inconsistencies, particularly with the clutch. And this is where everything changed. Because Ferruccio wasn't just a customer, he was an engineer, a problem solver, someone who didn't accept flaws. So instead of staying silent, he did something bold. He approached Enzo Ferrari directly. Imagine that moment. Two completely different personalities, two completely different philosophies, standing face to face. Ferruccio Lamborghini, calm, analytical, focused on improvement. Enzo Ferrari, proud, intense, uncompromising, focused on legacy and racing above all else. Ferruccio explained the issue, the clutch, the reliability, the potential improvements, because from his perspective, these were solvable problems. But Enzo didn't see it that way. Because for him, Ferrari wasn't about comfort. It wasn't about practicality. It wasn't about making life easier for the driver. It was about racing, emotion, experience, even if that experience came with flaws. And then came the moment that changed everything. Enzo Ferrari dismissed him. Not just his feedback, but him. He told Ferruccio that maybe he should stick to building tractors, that Ferrari was not for people like him to criticize. And just like that, a spark turned into a fire. Because Ferruccio Lamborghini wasn't just a businessman. He was proud, driven, and now motivated. He didn't argue. He didn't escalate. He didn't try to convince Enzo. He did something far more dangerous. He decided to compete. And that decision changed the automotive world forever. Because Ferruccio didn't just want to build a car. He wanted to build a better Ferrari. A machine that fixed the problems. A machine that combined performance with comfort, power with reliability, speed with refinement. And that's how Lamborghini was born. Not from racing, not from tradition, but from rebellion, from a desire to prove something, to himself, to Enzo Ferrari, to the world. And unlike Ferrari, Lamborghini had a different philosophy from day one. No racing obsession, no compromises on comfort, no acceptance of flaws. Ferruccio built cars for drivers, not just racers, and that difference created tension. Because now Ferrari wasn't alone. A new challenger had entered the game with a different mindset, a different identity, a different vision of what a supercar should be. And the world watched, curious, skeptical, excited, because rivalries create energy, they create innovation, they push boundaries. And this rivalry was just getting started, because in the next part, Lamborghini builds its first machines, Ferrari responds, and the battle begins to take shape, not just in philosophy, but in metal, in engines, in speed. And that's when things become real.
The moment Ferruccio Lamborghini decided to compete, everything changed. Because this was no longer about fixing a clutch. It was no longer about a disagreement. It was about proving a point that would shake the entire automotive world. Ferruccio Lamborghini didn't waste time. He didn't hesitate. He didn't second-guess his decision. Because when a man like him commits, he executes. The first step wasn't building a car. It was building a team. Because if he wanted to challenge Ferrari, he needed the best minds in engineering, people who understood performance, people who understood precision, people who could take an idea and turn it into reality. And here's where things get interesting. Because Ferruccio didn't just hire random engineers, he recruited talent from the same world Ferrari dominated. People who knew how those machines worked, people who understood the strengths and the weaknesses. This wasn't just competition. This was calculated, strategic. While Ferrari was focused on racing, Lamborghini focused on something different: balance, comfort, reliability. Because Ferruccio believed that a great car shouldn't punish the driver, it should elevate the experience. And then, the first real statement arrived: the Lamborghini 350 GT. This wasn't just a car, it was a message, a declaration that Lamborghini was not playing small. Elegant design, refined performance, a V12 engine that rivaled Ferrari's power, but delivered it in a smoother, more controlled way. Where Ferrari cars felt raw, aggressive, demanding, the 350 GT felt composed, stable, civilized. And that difference was intentional, because Lamborghini wasn't trying to copy Ferrari, it was trying to outthink it. Meanwhile, Enzo Ferrari watched, silently, carefully. At first, there was no panic. Ferrari had history, reputation, dominance in racing. But what Lamborghini introduced was something new, a different kind of customer experience, one that appealed to a growing market of wealthy individuals who wanted performance without sacrifice. And that's when the pressure started building. Because for the first time, Ferrari wasn't just competing in races, it was competing in perception. Then came the next move, and this one changed everything: the Lamborghini Miura. If the 350 GT was a statement, the Miura was a revolution. Mid-engine layout, a design that looked like nothing else on the road. Low, wide, aggressive, almost futuristic. This wasn't just a car. It was the birth of the modern supercar. And suddenly, Lamborghini wasn't just competing, it was leading innovation. The Miura shocked the world, not just because of its speed, but because of its presence. It demanded attention, it created emotion, it made people stop and stare. And Ferrari? Ferrari had to respond, because this wasn't part of the plan. Ferrari built race cars for the road, machines that prioritized performance above all else. But Lamborghini? Lamborghini was building desire, and desire is powerful. Now the battlefield had expanded. It wasn't just about lap times. It wasn't just about racing victories. It was about identity. Ferrari represented tradition, racing heritage, raw performance. Lamborghini represented disruption, luxury, bold design, a new way of thinking. And customers started to choose sides. Some wanted the purity of Ferrari, the connection to racing, the legacy built by Enzo Ferrari. Others wanted the innovation of Lamborghini, the vision of Ferruccio Lamborghini. And that division fueled the rivalry, because now every new car mattered, every design decision mattered, every innovation was a move in a much bigger game. And the competition intensified. Faster engines, sharper designs, more aggressive performance. Both brands pushing each other beyond limits. But here's the truth. Rivalries like this don't just create competition. They create evolution. Without Ferrari, Lamborghini wouldn't exist. Without Lamborghini, Ferrari wouldn't be pushed to adapt. And that tension, that constant pressure, is what created some of the greatest cars in history. But the story doesn't slow down, because in the next phase, the stakes get higher, the designs get more extreme, and the rivalry becomes global. This is where legends are built, and where mistakes become expensive. Because when two giants collide, only one thing is guaranteed. Nothing stays the same.
By the time the Miura hit the streets, everything had changed. Because this was no longer just a rivalry. It was a transformation of the entire industry. Lamborghini had done something nobody expected. It didn't just compete with Ferrari. It redefined what a supercar could be. The Miura wasn't just fast. It was emotional. It was art. It was rebellion on four wheels. And suddenly, the world didn't just want performance. It wanted presence. Because when people saw a Miura, they didn't think about lap times. They felt something. Desire, curiosity, obsession. And that created pressure, real pressure. Because Ferrari had always dominated through racing, through results, through discipline. But now it had to compete in something different: emotion, design, attention. And that required adaptation. Enzo Ferrari understood one thing better than anyone. If you don't evolve, you fall behind. So Ferrari responded, not with panic, but with precision. Cars became more refined, more controlled, still aggressive, but now with greater attention to balance. Because Ferrari couldn't abandon its identity. It couldn't suddenly become Lamborghini. It had to remain Ferrari, but a sharper version, a more complete version. And this is where the rivalry became fascinating, because both brands were now pushing in different directions while still chasing the same goal: dominance. Lamborghini doubled down on design, extreme angles, low silhouettes, cars that looked like they belonged in the future. Ferrari doubled down on performance, engineering, racing DNA, machines that felt alive at high speed. Two philosophies, two visions, one battlefield. And the customers? They became part of the war. Because choosing a car was no longer just about driving, it was about identity. Owning a Ferrari meant discipline, precision, connection to racing heritage. Owning a Lamborghini meant boldness, confidence, standing out at all costs. And that division only grew stronger. Then came the next evolution, the Lamborghini Countach. If the Miura shocked the world, the Countach exploded it. Sharp lines, scissor doors, a design so aggressive it almost didn't look real. This wasn't just a car, it was a statement of the future. And once again, Lamborghini forced the industry to react. Because now, being fast wasn't enough. You had to be unforgettable. Ferrari watched, calculated, adapted. Because Ferrari never chased trends. It refined them, perfected them, turned them into something timeless. And that's what made this rivalry so powerful. It wasn't just competition, it was contrast. Lamborghini was loud, Ferrari was focused. Lamborghini was disruptive, Ferrari was disciplined. Lamborghini chased attention, Ferrari earned respect. And both approaches worked. Because together, they created something bigger than themselves. They created the supercar era, a world where cars weren't just machines, they were dreams, symbols, statements of success. And as the rivalry grew, so did the stakes. More money, more innovation, more pressure.
Because now the entire world was watching, and with attention comes expectation. Customers wanted more, faster cars, better designs, greater exclusivity, and both brands delivered, again and again. But behind the scenes, things weren't always perfect, because growth comes with challenges, financial pressure, market shifts, internal struggles, and those challenges would soon test both Ferrari and Lamborghini in ways they had never experienced before. Because rivalries don't just create winners, they expose weaknesses. And in the next part, the story takes a darker turn. Economic struggles, ownership changes, moments where everything was at risk. Because even legends can fall.